doing it and then getting with, in a groove with it.
Oh, I know. Okay, like let's see. I'm waiting for Instagram on my end to go live. And looks like we're there. Go live from here.
Okay, I see it's live. Let me click on it. And
Okay,
there I
cool.
am. Anyone can see that you're watching too. I'm clicking my drop down. I don't have any options here. Let me click the other drop down.
Is there a little share button? Like
There's
send?
the share video. Yeah, share this live video with others so they can watch it too. Okay, share video. So I just where would I share? It's giving me an option to share like with email, WhatsApp. Let me see here. I don't have like an option to kind of to share it in any other way than just like
I can.
emails or um,
Right.
let me so that's probably let me tap the message button and see if that gives me, because usually when I tap that it'll say like
Yeah.
share to stories, and
Mhm, mhm.
they're not giving me that option. It's only sharing to um, like if you were to share a link, or if you were to share a there's some things that you can't share to your own stories, and it appears that this is one of them.
Okay.
So
Do you wanna just
I'll make a
do you
screenshot and
wanna
just do a story. I'm just gonna say, "Hey, I'm
Okay.
live," and there you go. On my
I love
stories. I
that.
know that's not as good, Vivi, but it's. I'm sorry. We really needed to
N
kind of go through this, and let me see
I
here.
love it. We're gonna learn to, like, figure out how to get your, Instagram on your browser.
It's because I have all like Brave browser, and I've got all this stuff built into it that protects me from all this stuff. So I think that's part of it. Like Instagram doesn't like that my settings like prevent ads or something, and I just I gave up, and I just use it on this one now. So
Okay.
all right, and I've
Okay,
had
here we
problems
are.
with Instagram. There's a whole thing. I would just say like getting accounts banned, and like for whatever reason, when I first was launching this account, like I had one that I launched and they banned me, and I don't know why. And I think it had to do with maybe my browser or just like a VPN or something. So I've had a lot of problems with Instagram. I'm kind of afraid of Instagram a little bit, and like messing with it or logging into different places because it's kind of messed me up in the past. I don't know, but anyhow, talking about tech earlier and like what's going on with technology, maybe that's my little story.
I love it. You're
Go
like
ahead.
literally all I know about you is, you were on Instagram, this is a few years ago, and doing the astrology stuff, and we're doing it really well. And just when I was about to reach out to you, you were like off, poof, gone, mystery. And now you're back and you're just like, I don't know if you've always been living in Europe, but you just sort of like appeared, you just reemerged in a part of the world. And now you have these these browsers and you can't get on Insta. You are kind of like the astrology world spy. I don't know like who you're working for or what it is you're trying to get out of this intel from. Are you even an astrologer?
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. I just work for my clients. I'm working for the people, for working for astrology, even is how I would say it. I mean, you do feel an obligation in a certain way. I do, at least, to like honor the craft and try to show up as an astrologer and participate in the community and in the discourse. And that's actually been a really important part of my conceptualization of astrology and why I practice, and all of it is, or how I practice is, we have kind of agreements, maybe in some sense, in some metaphysical sense, to the craft itself and to the
Yeah.
lineage and to the people that have come before. And this has come up in context. I'll stop here in a second, but like with the
No, no, this
political
is great.
astrology,
Please.
yeah, the political astrology, there is a real art to it, because if what comes first in terms of a priority as an astrologer and working as a professional astrologer, do you try to make the astrology central and then keep maybe some of the politics that can be quite combustive, sidelined, so that
Yeah.
astrology can be centered, and that's how I've tried to do it. And of course, none of us are perfect, but some people do it the opposite, where maybe their political passions are centered, and then the astrology is just kind of in service of that as the primary goal. And so, I mean, not to jump right into something that's a little bit of a hot topic, but I mean, this
No.
is, the idea for me has always been like, okay, I'm an astrologer. I feel called to this profession. I want to honor it, and I want to, try to make sure that my astrology can not have distractions or be obfuscated by other, or threatened by, other agendas I might have, So
Mm.
anyhow, let me just say one other quick thing. Yeah, I was on IG, and I never really used it for astrology, and I, as like the main purpose of my accounts, I've always used it to share photography and just more of just my own personal life. I mean, using it for art, basically. And then I was off of it. Let's see, maybe 2 years ago, I got off of it. It was that Mars retrograde in Gemini. I don't know if you remember that
Mm.
long one there. It was like
Mhm,
late
mhm.
2021, early 2022, or no, late 2022, early 2023. And, part of that decision was just, we live in this world, and maybe we can talk some about this, because I'm curious, you as someone who's on social media, like, it's just part of our world, publishing on social media. There's all these platforms, and it can be easily overwhelming for people to, have to manage so many platforms. And that was part of it last time, was I was just
Yeah.
having a lot of trouble managing even like my messages here. And I've shut it down now, where I don't, people can't even message me here unless, I guess, I'm following them. I don't even know how that works,
Yeah.
but in my settings, I've restricted that as much as I could, because I can't manage it all. I mean, we only have so much time during the day, and you become a full-time manager of your social media. So that's why I left last time. This time I'm back because I left X Twitter for similar reasons, and I had a somewhat large account there, but I just couldn't take that app. And I found I need some kind of outlet that's not YouTube, just to kind of write or publish or share,
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying Instagram being back here this time. It's fun, it's got some cool stuff to it. So anyhow, sorry, I know there's a lot I just threw out there, and
There's so
didn't
much
mean
to
to rant
unpack
so
there,
long,
and
but yeah.
no, I love it. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
go backwards. I'm gonna start at the end and then go, like, back, because I think the subject matter gets heavier as we kind of reverse this conversation. Um, Absolutely, I agree with you about social media, and it's funny, and I'm just kinda checking this for comments. Hi, friends. If anyone's here, you can also chat with us. I am checking comments. Um, I find that doing these IG lives are the only way that makes, like, Instagram, like, um palatable for me, because I get to actually, like, talk to people and feel like I'm like, "Oh, this is a way for me to connect with people I actually know," and if I can work social media like that, it feels okay. I also just had, like, huge social media burnout recently, where I'm, like, so over, like, staring at screens, that I've been doing a lot of things in person, um, which, and then you look and you're like, "Oh, but I forgot I have all these friends inside the computer. I miss them." Um, so I can agree with what you're saying. Going back, I'm so, because you are, I mean, I know you have like, one-on-one consulting practice, but I also think of you as a really well-regarded mundane astrologer, kind of talking about, the politics there for a moment. And I'm curious, both, it's really funny. I was having breakfast with my friend Tracy the other day, and she was saying something, and she was singing your praises. She had a question for you, and I can't remember what it is. I wish I could have, like, remembered. Anyway, could you 2 questions. Tell us a little bit about, like, for those who don't know, what mundane astrology is, what your practice looks like. Um, Actually, let's start there. I'll do follow-up questions from there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, mundane astrology is simply the astrology of the world, meaning, and that, that's what the phrase that you hear, attached to it. I think it's
Yeah.
just astrology that's not the personal astrology, and not family astrology. So it's like astrology, and maybe not even like, small group astrology. It's more the astrology of nation states, peoples, economies, larger swaths of time in terms of technological innovation and impact. And so, that's what we're really looking at, is these kind of higher level turns and twists in society. and how astrology can inform those and help us interact symbolically with those changes on a more collective level. Real quick, I just want to pause here. I did try to go to this. It said stream to your audience, and it was asking for my stream key. Is that something I can just plug in here, and I might not even need to log in? Is there a stream key? Do you know how to get the stream key for this? And I
You
can
know
try to
what? I
plug it
wonder
in
if it's
here.
I wonder if it's my let me see. Let me see if it's my stream key.
I don't mean to interrupt us. It might. It would be cool to if we get this out there, maybe more people would
No, that would
join,
be
and that would be.
great.
We could take some questions and stuff. I mean, that would be fun. But I'm going to ask AI. I'm going to say, how do I get my Instagram stream key, and see if it'll
Great,
tell
because
me.
I feel like if I give you
Okay.
my stream key, it's going to stream to mine. So
Yeah.
that's a perfect.
So sorry, and so just we can kind of do this in an overlapping thing. You know, people out there
No,
for
it's
saying,
okay.
what is
People go.
mundane
We know
astrology?
Spencer. Looks like Spencer's here. If Spencer's still here,
Okay.
So if you are still here, maybe grab a beverage. Welcome.
Okay. Let me see
What
here.
does by the
obtain
way?
Yeah.
What does SJ stand for? I feel like that's a question you can multitask with.
Just my two given names on my birth certificate. So Stephen John is what it stands for. No one really knows. I don't really go by those in the astrology world. Even in my professional world, I was called SJ for a long time in my former job because there was another Stephen in that workplace, and so it just kind of stuck. And my names are too plain, so I was just like, this will give me some. If I just keep it as I publish about astrology, out it will allow me to have something different. There's actually another Stevie Anderson, I think, that's an astrologer, I think in LA.
Oh.
If you're there, I don't know if you've seen, I think. So let me just quickly read this. Obtain a stream key.
Okay.
So yeah, it looks like it's going to be way too complicated. It's talking about other third party. Let me see. Let me just ask it. Can I get it from IG directly?
Because you can't. So
through the app?
if you were on the browser, but I'm wondering how you get the stream key from the mobile app.
No, you cannot get it. So let me see here. What about StreamYard? This will be my final question, because I'm in the
No, we
StreamYard, and
love it.
it said stream this to your audience. I clicked it. StreamYard does not have direct support with Instagram Live due to Instagram's restrictions. StreamYard to connect directly through Instagram via APIs or other servers, but you have to use another tool like Yellow Duck or Lula.tv. So I won't be able to do that right now. Even if I was on the other browser that I've used successfully in the past, it looks like I'd have to go to another third-party app to generate that key, and then come bring it
Oh
back
no,
into
I think you're
StreamYard.
old. So now you're not old. I think you're looking at
Okay.
old links. So if you were on
Okay.
everyone, you're getting a tutorial, the latest StreamYard Instagram technology. If you were on the browser, I know you can do it on the browser, not the web app, but there's it says create, and you press that and it says go live, and then it gives you a stream key. So
Okay.
I know how to get the stream key on the computer, the desktop, if you will, but not the app.
Okay, well, I think we'll just table this then, and just maybe we can come back.
Oh,
This will be
there will
you're
be
going to
more
share this.
conversations. Yeah, I'm going to share it,
Okay.
and there'll be more conversation. I
Okay.
literally I've been doing these IG lives. They're like no stress for people to pop in and just like get to know you before I do a full-fledged podcast recording, because those take a lot of work. I don't know if you've
Okay.
tried editing audio, but it's a task.
I've edited tons of video. I've never had a podcast proper, but I know podcasters that, the back end of the audio of a podcast is, depending on like the quality or, and how involved you
Yeah.
want to go with it, can be really cool. And okay, so sorry to distract us there. I just, in case there was a quick way to do that, I wanted to try to do that, and looks like there's not going to be. So I'm just going to come back. Got my full undivided attention. The answer was hopefully some kind of general first answer for people. I mean, I could give an example if you want. Maybe that would help this.
Yeah, give an example, and then I have a
what
follow-up question. Yeah, give an example.
Okay. The main example I want to give, because we all lived through this, was Saturn's first ingress into Aquarius in March 2020.
Okay.
And that happened within the days of the major global coordinated lockdowns that happened all over the world. And those are Aquarian and Saturnine turns in the collective. The idea of being locked in, and technology being a part of what connected the world. Tech apps like this, Zoom. I call it
Yeah.
the Zoom turn in our reality, and it fits exactly with the symbolism of Saturn into Aquarius. I mean, to a T. You couldn't even imagine something more accurate. And so it's this idea of moving symbolism in the sky of this planet, this always moving and always changing planetary symbolism. That symbolic map reflected in our reality quite well. And
Mhm.
it's stuff like this that we look at in mundane, or at least that I look at in mundane astrology. So.
Mm. I love that. That to me feels like a really good use of mundane, right? Like being able to experience something really big, really overwhelming, and then also being able to see like where it's falling in the sky. So we have a sense of, okay, this is a thing, it starts, it won't go on forever. Similarly to how we look at the natal chart often, right? I'm going through something, it's here, it's happening, it won't be forever. Um, do you agree with that? You're
100%,
shaking.
and it's one of my favorite. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Yeah, it's one of the beauties of, and you saw it during those years because 2021 was probably the peak lockdown years in a lot of places,
Yeah.
and that was Jupiter and Saturn sharing Aquarius together. That didn't begin actually until the end of 2020. And if you
Mhm.
recall, the 2020, though there was that initial lockdown, it kind of
Yeah.
opened back up that summer, and things were there
Yeah.
was normalcy, at least in a lot of places. Wasn't until 2021 that it really became the kind of, more all of the stuff that went down in that period around, lockdown and just the whole COVID years, you might say. But if you follow Jupiter, when Jupiter entered Pisces, it changed. When it entered Aries, it really did
Mhm.
release, you know, um, that kind of collective way of being, you might say. And so the Jupiter
Yeah.
cycle timed it exactly. And there were some days it was so amazing. And this begs the question of, are policymakers using astrology? And I think they probably are, at least some at some level. But
Mhm.
like the day of Jupiter's, I think, final ingress into Aries was the day that the US government officially says the emergency phase of the pandemic is over. It was that day.
Mm.
And of course, in a lot of different places, it had already, states had different policies and things. But
Yeah.
that's just one example. I know, and I don't mean going into all of that. We don't have to, because I know that can kind of be a strange topic to return to. But it was just, the sky map was reflected in the reality, quite literally, with some of these almost exact dates, and it was
Yeah.
really trippy to watch.
And I remember experiencing that and watching the astrology in real time, and there being a sense of like, oh, astrology works, and also maybe we'll get out of this, right? Like I think for me, my astrology always works on a very base level of like it doesn't last forever, and so there was something comforting being able to see, oh, this thing does have turns. We can kind of understand it, right? That's a huge thing. Like if without, I don't know, for my life without astrology, everything was like pure chaos. But suddenly, right, astrology gives us shape. Like we can suddenly see there's a bend to this. It won't like a trajectory, right? And that's wonderful. Now, my follow up question actually is perhaps a bit controversial. Um, and I've haven't followed you in depth when it comes to this your work around this particular upcoming U.S. election. And my
Mm,
question's a bit controversial, but also a bit broad. So I don't want to, we don't have to get into politics here, but
please.
it makes the sort of astrological frenzy around trying to predict the winner. Um, it almost feels like sports casting to me, and I kind of have to ask myself to what end. Like you have people who are really pro, like this is surefire, this is the winner, and they're like so hyped. And I'm like, well, we still have to vote on this. Like it feels like you're kind of like really wishful thinking, but also it feels a little bit of like don't count your eggs before they hatch type thing. Like jumping the gun here, and then you get the other people who are very like doom, but in both cases it feels kind of what you were referencing before. There is like a personal desire to be right, a personal desire to like almost put their candidate where they want. And like I'm saying this as if there's like I'm like I would ever vote for Trump and stuff, being like discreet, like, oh, I'm not going to talk anyway, whatever.
Okay, go for it.
But I say all this like because you have to wonder, you're like, is this actually helping anyone? It's like I get it when there was like a king hires you and a king's like, can you tell me if I'm going to win? Because I kind of have to like, or I guess kings are a bad example because they don't really get elected, but like, I don't know if a king's like, will I die? Will I lose the war? Like, these are things that you kind of might want to know because you could like build strategy around them. But like, I don't know. Like, these candidates aren't hiring you. Like, are you actually helping? It was a very long-winded way of getting that question out. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right on. I would even take it further and say astrology might be not the tool to even make that prediction, maybe.
Mhm.
And it actually is. And I said this in a recent live stream. Someone had me on an election panel. And one of my
Yeah.
slides is like, look, this is not the highest and best use of astrology. This, what we're doing here is not the highest and best use of astrology. And I think about it as a processing tool more than a predictive tool. That's how I
Mhm.
use it, and with my clients. Now, we know that there's a symbol map that will exist in 6 months. It doesn't exist now, and that hits
Yeah.
parts of our chart, and that hits areas of our life. And it's good to what I call scenario plan for the changing symbol map. But I think it's way more powerful to let the symbols arrive and then see what's emergent in the life, and that will help empower us as much if not more than trying to predict what our life is going to be in the future. So in terms of the politics, yeah, I think just coming back to this specific election, and I said this in that talk, it's like if Trump wins, we have new information around what the very important 2025 and 2026 astrology will be, and how that's going to be manifesting. If Kamala wins, we have again another version of that. So it almost really doesn't, in the sense of using astrology to assist our processing of reality. You know, I don't think astrology fails either way. We still have to process life, process reality, digest the emergences, and then use what astrology is informing us with, to our benefit. And I can go into some ideas about that here, but I mean, that's my first kind of answer back. And I don't think, I mean, I'm questioning actually my own, like next year, will I even come out with like, this is my prediction. And I didn't even really do that this time. Even my original video from 18 months ago, I mean, it was always held within this frame of how I use astrology, which is, here's how I was like in that video, this is the case where maybe it goes the other way. And here's some reasons why, so I'm with you. I don't think we need to put that on astrology. I think that's the wrong burden to put onto astrology. And it's not just me that said it. I remember in UAC, the United Astrology Conference
Yeah.
2018, when I met Spencer there actually.
Yeah.
But they had a whole panel, which was, is prediction killing astrology, I think is what it was called. And that panel's genesis was the aftermath of the 2016 election, where all the big astrologers failed. They failed. Now, all of the prognosticators outside of astrology failed too. But astrology really had to come to grips with, what is even prediction in terms of astrological power. I mean, how does prediction get deployed with our astrological tools? And we have to call that into question. And I'm all for that. I think we need to ask that predicate question: is astrology a predictive technology or not? And if so, how? And my answer is going to be a lot more aligned with people like Stephen Forrest and others that were like, no, it's prediction is killing astrology. And we need to take a step back from that as how we kind of think about it in a primary sense. So I hope that answers
Yeah.
something that
No,
you said.
no.
But
It did, and it's quite comforting. I just again, so much of it feels like sports right now. That's my best way of saying it. But also maybe building on something else here, thinking about I know Jeffrey Cornelius just died, who's I read The Moment of Astrology, but I'm not beyond that. I mean, that's his work that I am familiar with. And just thinking about his idea of astrology as divination, but also the relationship between the astrologer and client, and like they're almost needing to be a question, and there needing to be some investment. And I think about like going through, like, I'm just like making up these historical cases, and you can totally tell me I'm wrong, but I'm imagining if someone comes to you in power and they're like, I really need to understand what's ahead. Like, this is important to me because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to map my career as people, whatever. Like, it feels like there's a relationship there where there's something at stake. And you could say, okay, like maybe in this, we're sort of behind closed doors. We could perhaps make a case for prediction, because it's not like at that point, it's not at the level of like betting. Does that make sense? Like, I'm wondering if there can be room for it, but in a space of like desire.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is, how can astrology speak about the future in a way that
Mhm.
is beneficial to us in the moment and in the present? And I think the distinction you're making is interesting between like more collective deployment versus maybe a one-on-one um, relationship where there's kind of clarity of intention or something, or clarity of
Mhm.
vision for the future. So I think your distinction, that there would be a lot to explore there. I do think, though, also that I would speak about this. How does astrology help us with the future in the same way? Because
Yeah.
in terms of the collective, and then with my clients, I think about it the same way, which is what I said earlier: scenario planning. So we have to scenario plan. I mean, the astrology restricts the domain of analysis, and we do this with things like what planets are involved, what houses are involved, what were the cycles like
Mhm.
before, what happened then, and then we get a kind of a restricted domain of potential. I don't like to restrict that too small, because there's always
Yeah.
new stuff happening, and the symbols are malleable and they're living, and they always can apply it, and form in new ways and assert in new ways. But that's the power of astrology. So, for example, if you come back to the election in America and we say, well, we know that Neptune is entering Aries next year, we know Uranus is entering Gemini, and we
Mhm.
know there's all kinds of cycle work that it tells us what that could potentially bring. We look at our reality right now. We know it's already bringing similar things
Yeah.
resonant with what those cycles are indicating will come. So we already have a lot to work with. It does, in terms of how to respond to what happens here on, what is it, 5th November. Like, we already have a lot that we're working with in terms of what the future will be, that astrology has given us. And so, to me, that's not like as much of a as prediction in a way. It's like you hear this sometimes. It's not my favorite analogy, but I
Yeah.
will use it here. It's that they say astrology is like a weather report, and so, we have some kind of weather report, and it's not telling us like it'll be this exact amount of inches, or that this is going to have, it's going to stop at exactly this time or something. Sometimes they get it wrong, the weather report. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
totally wrong. So, but that's how I'm thinking about this, in terms of what you just shared. I think that there's something about like desire, but we can speak to that desire in these like hypotheticals, and kind
Mhm.
of restricted potentials, using the astrological symbol set, and that's different than prediction, in my view. There's some overlap with prediction, but it's different. It's like helping
Yeah.
people co-create or manifest their world using a symbol set that's pretty ancient. We're inheritors of a symbol set. So that's where the divination can come from too. It's like tarot. I mean, you've got the
Mm.
cards that have been around for what, 600 years or however long since those decks were first made.
Yeah.
And that the fact of the longevity of the symbol is powerful in and of itself. So like the first house and its significations,
Mhm.
and that being continuously used for 2000 years, to bring that into someone's world next year, that is a powerful like node of divination, of synchronistic resonance, if that makes sense. So I hope you're kind of see where I'm going here.
Yeah,
And
no,
I don't
no, I
think that's
love this
quite
idea.
prediction. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love
Go
this.
ahead.
Two things: the idea of an inherited symbol set, right? Like thinking about when you're bringing something in, you're bringing the context of everyone who's used to that in a sense, right? Like, these things have a history. I also it's so helpful. This is sort of maybe just more of a comment more than anything. But it's the most frustrating thing to me in a consultation, and I absolutely get it when someone, it feels like they put a gun to your head and they're like, "Tell me yes or no." And I know that that's like, horror astrologers probably like live for that. But like when I'm sitting with somebody and they want to know something and they're like coming down to yes or a no, it's like, I don't want to take that away from you, right? Like I can I can say, it might be difficult, it could be challenging, but I don't want to take away possibility from you. And every time when it comes down to yes or no, I feel like that's what you're trying to get me to do. I don't know if you feel the same.
I do. And I tell clients all the time, maybe, or I'll just say, listen, I don't know. I just tell them I don't know. And I'll say, this is what I do know. And then I come in and say, so let's just like a chart
Yeah.
example, Cancer rising, Jupiter enters Cancer next year let's see, in
Is it
June
June?
on the 9th, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
June 9th UTC. So Jupiter will enter Cancer. And with Cancer rising, you have a ninth house, Pisces, the whole sign system. You
Okay.
have a, let's see here, that would be a sixth house, Sagittarius. So,
Mhm.
I mean, and I don't know what they're asking about. Let's say this client is saying, listen, I'm feeling stuck. When is this going to change? Will it be different? Please, yes or no. When's it going to, or something like this. All I would
Yeah.
say is, yeah, I mean, the symbol map says definitely yes. I mean, you have an empowerment transit that will bring confidence and reveal the nature of being and give you a real boost, at one level. That's what the symbols say. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in your life. I mean, I'll tell them that all the time, and then I'll say, if you want more yes or no, I think something like tarot is a better tool
Mm.
for some kind of hard divination. I don't see astrology as a yes or no divination tool. I see it as again, like a report of symbol map, a theme of a determiner of theme, that sometimes can be right on. But if someone came to me and said, I want to know, is my ex going to get back with me? I would say, let's pull cards.
Yeah.
And if I get like, five of swords and just some really harsh cards, no, they're not. That's what I would say to them. Now, even then, I probably wouldn't want to give any kind of definitive, because I think we should leave room for life to emerge. But I'm not, just coming back to astrology. So that's how I would use astrology. I would say, let's flip it. Let's say they're a Capricorn rising and Jupiter will
Yeah,
come into
yeah.
their seventh. And I would
Mm.
say, listen, whether the ex comes back or not, that's not the relevant query for you. The query is, what is the truth, wisdom, justice, and revelation around you and the other? And if the ex fits the truths that are being revealed to you, then welcome them back. But I even would tell people, like, throw the astrology out. I mean, do you have a healthy relationship to your own life and to your own way that you engage in relationship? You're going to have to fix that. Doesn't matter if they come back if you haven't fixed that. So, and that would be the opportunity of Jupiter in your seventh, is like, go read the book Codependent No More. Go read, whatever you need to do, and then you're setting yourself up for victory and success in that area for Jupiterian expansion. So anyhow, I hope some of those ideas there
Yeah.
kind of speak to how I would treat that, or how I think about astrology, or something like this. But
Oh, I love it. It's sometimes like when you're like in your zone and it's just like you and your clients, you can feel, at least for me, like completely out in the woods alone. Right? Like I'm just like, how do other people navigate these things? Because like I think I'd respond in the exact same way. And sometimes, right, it's difficult. And I guess that's a whole other conversation of like maybe etiquette you should have before seeing an astrologer. Um, but that's totally refreshing because, and oftentimes people don't want to hear that. They just want to know. But I don't care. Is he coming back?
yeah. I would
And
say, what's that meme? Oh, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
no, please go on.
There's that meme. It's like the tarot spread, and it says, "Dump him." So anyhow, I just think that's like, I would just say, dump him, sis. Like, dump him. Like, don't, like, why are you even asking me if he's coming back? Like, focus on you. That's what I would want to tell this hypothetical client. But anyhow,
Oh, I love it. I love this idea, the symbol map, just that phrasing, because that's truly, um, I think that's, I mean, that really resonates with how I see astrology, but it also does. I feel, I don't know where I'm always getting this anxiety about. I think prediction in astrology is like, maybe it's because it's so prevalent. For me, it almost feels like a dark cloud that's like I'm feeling like, oh, should I be better at this? And then I'm like, do I even want to? I don't even like predicting this in my own life.
Interesting. Yeah. I just say, if someone wants me to make a prediction, I'm going to say, you're going to be happy, you're going to be satisfied, you're going to be healthy. I just like, that's where I want to go, because I think we should, I call it positive project. Why shouldn't we just positive project? I mean, that's an honest question. It's not, I know it might sound, maybe glib or something, but I mean, I honestly
Yeah.
feel that way. If someone's planning about and thinking about their future, let's positive project. In a year from now, you'll be healthier, happier, more satisfied, more, evolved in terms of your goals. And then let's start with that, and let's start planning for that world using the astrology for that world. And then now it's easy. I do this basically as a rule.
Yeah.
Now, if you see like Mars square Saturn in the midheaven and ascendant exactly, an exact square with the malefics, it's hard to like. I do like to start there. How can we use these constructively? But you do
Yeah.
sometimes have to say, listen, in the astrological symbol set, these are really harsh symbols. And these transits, if there was something to prepare for, like you might want to not climb out free climb El Capitan during this. Okay, don't do that. You might not want to, have the big presentation or something. You might want to just wait for this to clear. And I would want to explore then like their schedule, what their plans are
Hmm.
for, like, let's say it's a Mars transit, it's going to be 6 weeks
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
talking to you before it starts. I'd say, what's your next 6 weeks like? Can you take it off? Could you just wait and kind of feel into this? A lot of times people have options for like big stuff. And I might say,
Yeah.
well, let's wait for Mars to trine Saturn that 6 weeks later, and maybe, and like there's that good election. And so sometimes you want to help people get, if there are pockets that look challenging, to try to plan for those by recommending inaction or settlement or, rest. And that way you're not like sticking your chin out to the universe. But still, I
Yeah.
like to, like, some people might say, hey, I can't, I've got this big presentation right on the day. I would say, all right, now let's delineate what this could be. You're going to be, might be tough, it might be challenging you. You might feel, you can't say no, so you're going to have to embrace this challenge. Just, you're going
Hmm.
to have to step into the ring and try. And squares can be productive, and Mars in the first can be really productive, and Saturn in the 10th can be great. So you can go there with any transit. You can make it something useful and positive. And I like to do that as a rule. Anyhow, I feel like I'm kind of ranting there, but it just
No, no, I
speaks
love
to, I
this.
think, a
I'm
little bit of
getting
what
really
you were saying.
absolutely. I'm getting excited. I'm like, oh, can we like have a like I want to do a podcast recording on the Mars retrograde with you. I'm like so fascinated by like I want to hear how you work with difficult transits because that's very exciting for me. And I also want to acknowledge that if Spencer's still here, Spencer had a question. So I'm going to
Okay.
hop into Spencer's question. Um, okay, so I'm going to go. I think this is a question. I don't think, yeah, it's a question. What role can mundane astrology play for us as a collective in an age when we have difficulty agreeing on a shared truth reality? Ooh, good question, Spencer.
Mhm. Great question. Yeah, I mean, I think we can agree, and I guess I was going to say astrologers can agree on the measurement, but even that's
Yeah.
disputed because of the different zodiacs that people use. But let's just say that there are. This is my first answer, but we'll come back and think about other ways to address this.
Yeah.
Um, my first answer is, let's just say we're going to use the tropical zodiac, okay?
Mhm.
And I think we can all agree that the symbol map is what it is at any given moment in time using the tropical zodiac. I mean, we don't have a dispute that Saturn is not in this sign, or Mars isn't going to be retrograding in Leo, Cancer. So we can all agree on that. And that might be a way to then maybe build bridges. So, for example, if we go back to the COVID years, there were people that were saying, well, Saturn in Aquarius, like, it's an exciting time, new technology, the innovations of Aquarius, the Saturn is kind of this collective tethering. We're all in this together, and we've got this new technology to kind of help us out of the pandemic. Whereas other people were delineating that differently. They're saying this is like a dystopian, kind of enforcement mechanism. And, and I don't even, not to get too much into that, but I think it's a good example where you have multiple truths, that symbol set can arguably be reflective of those multiple truths. And,
Mhm.
in a certain way, we can build bridges with that. Like for me, it's easy to acknowledge both of those, setting
Yeah.
aside my own beliefs. Like, yeah, I can see that could be this exactly. This could be like the great ranks of Saturn and the innovations of, our scientists with, mRNA, and there you go. I mean, you have to consider that. And any good astrologer is going to have to consider that. And I think the other side has to be true too. And so there's that side of kind of building bridges where we try to use the symbol set to confirm the viewpoints of others as a way to acknowledge the validity, because it's undeniable as in terms of it being built into the symbol set. And maybe we can build bridges that way or accept people that way. I think one of the other things that was just coming to mind was that if this also could be just a symptom of the age, like Neptune and Pisces, and there's a lot of obfuscation and lack of clarity about truth when you have so much Piscean energy. This arose, 2012 to 2025, 2026. That's going to be Neptune and Pisces. And of course, we've seen the rise of social media. And so maybe there's something where the astrology can help us, like you said earlier, know when this might end. Neptune and
Yeah.
Aries is a very different energy. It's not one that's just confused. And so maybe that could help us, where astrology helps us, using the mundane astrology, know when maybe there will be less of a confusion around truth.
Mhm.
And I guess I would just say third, I mean, and this is some of my own just personal beliefs outside of astrology, is just, accepting different viewpoints. I mean, I think we're going to have to do that. We've always had to do that. And there's been societies that are more cosmopolitan and, multipolar. And, I think this is a very human problem at one level, that astrology isn't necessarily equipped to often solve, or even its job isn't to solve some stuff, like questions like this. It would be like saying, how can astrology help us? I think it's a good question, don't get me wrong, but it's like, how can astrology, help us eliminate evil in the world? Or, and that's, it might not be the best way to do it. I think it might not be the best equipped tool to eliminate evil. What I would say is this, and this gets into a whole nother topic, but even Rob
Yeah.
Hand, very influential for my views, and Spencer. That's where I met Spencer, was at a Rob Hand talk at UAC. I remember that very well. Rob read Spencer's chart, and I learned a lot from Rob Hand. I've learned a lot from him just seeing him do readings. But
Yeah.
he says that astrology doesn't work for everybody, and it actually works for people that have like an awareness, a self-awareness. The idea is that people that are like self-aware and basically spiritual, or kind of working a spiritual program or
Mhm.
something like this, that's who astrology works for. If you're just in a more of a reactive and kind of shut down and unaware consciousness, it's just not going to help. And so, and that's what I would say. Part of my answer is just like, for those of us who are open and aware and spiritually inclined and trying to like add value and all of it, then the mundane astrology in an age of multiple truths can be an invitation in to help us grapple with that multiplicity. And I personally like to consider the opposite of what my tendency is, just to see if I missed something or something like this. And I like to hold space for multiple truths, and I think that helps when you're, so, again, it just goes back to what I said earlier, that the symbol set can show us how multiple things can exist. Same symbols can mean similar things and different things contained within that symbol set. Anyhow, I hope that answers it somewhat.
Yeah.
And I just, one last thing I want to say on this.
Yeah,
To
yeah, yeah.
me, and this kind of relates to what Spencer asked, is like, I think I don't know if the implicit in that question is that we should have the same truth, but I kind of think that is not true. Like, there's never going to be the same truth. And you see that in our craft, where you have multiple um, zodiacs, you have multiple
Mhm.
house division systems. Like, that's inevitable, that there's multiple truths, and that's kind of a feature of the life itself. And so I kind of embrace that. Like, I just think we use astrology to kind of align the best we can with the truths that we feel are accurate, and try to love, people, centering these other values like love and helping people, and just trust that whatever truth seems right to us, that there's a reason why we're moved to see the world that way. And then using astrology the best we can to like heal and help, and but knowing that there's other versions and other reality frames or reality tracks in this in the realm. So anyhow, it's a fascinating and complicated topic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's these are just a few thoughts.
Going back to the multiplicity of symbols, that's something I really like, right? If you think about going back to the Saturn square Mars example in the made up natal chart, right? Like I want, like, like maybe I can't avoid it's Saturn and Mars, right? There's going to have to be a bit of like, this might be crunchy, right? This might be stressful, possibly dangerous, right? Like we know that you can't deny that part of the symbolism, but I also want it to be like, oh, but this could actually be something that pushes me, to gives me the drive to do the thing that I've been pushing off for years. It could be the thing that pushes me to the difficult stuff I've been avoiding for years, right? Like I want the symbolism to have depth and nuance, because otherwise, like, why bother?
Yes. And then just along with that, I mean, I can list you chart example after chart example where an opposition or a square from Saturn has been amazing. I mean, in my own life,
Mhm.
I left China when I was there in 2020 to go back to the COVID. I don't know why we started the COVID stuff, but I mean, I think it was a good example just from the mundane, but now we're kind of in more about that time. But I had Saturn squaring my ascendant and on my IC, and I had to flee China. I mean, they were going to shut down my region, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to stay here for a lockdown. And that forced me. I was forced into decision making, and there was no way around it, And so I left, and then that's when I pivoted into full time astrology work, because I had the free time, And so I wouldn't even be where, and it was exactly what I needed. I would have maybe not felt ready for that before that square. I was like, oh, I'm going to do it later. I always wanted to do it and knew I would, but
Yeah.
that forced my hand, that forced reality to change. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So, I mean, I'm not afraid of it anymore, even if there are crises that are maybe more short term.
Yeah.
I think this is part of my life philosophy, is like, there's a reason why things happen. I mean, there's an elegance to the world, and pain isn't just for torture. I mean, there's a reason, excuse me, often. And I think at least I like to think about the world that way. So yeah, Mars Saturn square. Okay, maybe someone gets fired from a job or gets injured, and then they're like painting for 6 weeks because they broke their leg, and there you go. Now their painting career takes off. And so yes, I like your reframe there and how you're thinking about it. And I definitely think the same way, 100%.
Yeah. Like I can also attest by having this last eclipse cycle, right? Like I'm an Aries sun, my ICMC axis and the Aries Libra axis. And there were some like brutal moments, like ego death over the past year. But emerging, I feel like I'm so grateful for what I thought was going to destroy me in the moment. Um, so I can absolutely attest to that, right? It didn't feel good by any means when it was happening, but I'm really thankful for it now.
Yeah. And often change doesn't feel good. Um, and that's because we're used to something. We're used to the way
Yeah.
things are. And change threatens the stasis of, the consciousness and the habits. So I think that, and this is what astrologers said, this is in the textbooks. That's the cool thing
Mhm.
too. This is not like us just kind of sugarcoating something. I mean, the astrological textbooks tell you this, particularly the 20th century astrologers. They're like, squares and oppositions, they're better. They force you to
Mhm.
change. They force
Yeah.
action. And they're like, sextiles and trines suck because you're just gonna, not have any kind of dynamic change or any sort of depth of character or something like this. I don't necessarily agree with that,
Yeah.
but I do think that oppositions and squares we can see them as whatever the discomfort that they trigger, and however we're forced to meet reality, that maybe that's for a purpose and a reason, and maybe that's an opportunity, to break us out of our, prisons, a little self-constructed
Yeah.
habits. And, I like that way to see the squares and oppositions for sure.
Um, Absolutely. And I'm going to, because we're winding down, we're almost getting in an hour here. I'm going to pivot and I want to get into a little bit about, right, who you are. And I'm going to sort of preface it with, um, I live right now in Los Angeles, and I don't know how you feel. There's certain context, which is the public. Like I'll go out with people that I have things in common with, maybe a reading, maybe art. We're just being people out in the world talking about things. And then I tell them I'm an astrologer, and there's confusion, there's almost sadness. And then they say, "Oh, either guess my sign. What does my palm say? I've had my cards read." And I suddenly feel like a circus act. And like at that moment, I just wish I could bring someone like yourself and go, but SJ Anderson, like they're an astrologer too. And I want to like put you in front of them. Like, look, we are thoughtful people. This is do you like do you get that? And also, which the question behind that is like, what is your background? Like, did you study philosophy? Because it feels there's something else coming through here beyond the astrology.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, no, I was. Let me see. I'll answer the first question first. Yeah, I mean, I kind of take it lightly. I meet people where they are, and I know that most people in this reality, when you say astrology, if they're interested in it, and that's not even the most people, but a lot of people
Mhm.
are in this day and
Yeah.
age. It's become quite popular. So it's either two camps. There's either the camp of people that are like, oh, maybe more scientific with their worldview, and maybe just not inclined to want to even receive astrology, or maybe even think about it or talk about it in their private sphere, like, oh, those people are sick for believing in it, or it's so toxic, our reality, that
Yeah.
astrology exists. Or like the Pope came out recently and was like, these astrologers and witches are running reality. So there is a lot of that.
Yeah.
I find with those people, I just win them over. I mean, I'm not interested. I can smile. We've probably already connected around other things. We've probably already had conversations that we're in a conversation. So I
Yeah.
find usually they're pretty forgiving if you're just happy and nice to them. And, I'm not going to force it. We'll just change the subject or something like this.
Mhm.
So I've never had someone attack me or come in and say, well, now explain yourself, even if they may have felt dismissive. And that's a kind of a good thing about just the social graces. Most people aren't going to do that because they're nice people, even if they feel, so. So then the other camp is people that just, yeah, well, guess my sun sign. I get that a lot here. Or just, oh, I like astrology. And they have some knowledge, maybe not. Most people don't know the houses I found that I talk to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I can bring them into and start showing them that core technique as like a predictive tool. But they'll say, when they say guess my sign, sometimes I listen, I don't guess signs. I mean, I don't know how or I'll just like throw out, is it this, is it this, is it this? And eventually you get it right.
Yeah.
So some people, yeah, some people, now where I am, I go to similar coffee shop and stuff. People know me as an astrologer. And
Mhm.
so, they'll now say, sit down. Hey, can I talk to you? And I'll give them like yeah, what's your question? And I'll load, and so then I'll maybe answer something like what's going on with me right now? And I'll say, okay, and I'll have their chart, Saturn in your sixth, how's your health? And okay, there you go. And they're satisfied. But I think some of it too is like, I'll say I'm a professional. Yes, this is how I've
Yeah.
got clients from all over the world. Pretty quickly, they have to at least acknowledge that it exists and that it is a profession and that people have success in the profession, and that can kind of quiet them as well a little bit. So okay, so let me just say the core of this question I think has something to do with like how we think about ourselves as astrologers and how we kind of adjust to that identity in the world.
Mhm.
And I just would encourage people out there, like, just, it's okay to be an astrologer. There's awesome astrologers. You're awesome, and people out there just kind of have confidence in your passion and what reality has brought you in terms of your identity as an astrologer, strength in numbers. This conference is coming up in 2026. I just found out about UAC, the next UAC in Chicago in 2026. Really
Oh,
looking forward to that, because it's the event where we can come together and you won't have to feel whatever this weirdness that people outside of our community give to us, and however they do that, that's all gone at a conference like that. And it's just like astrologers everywhere, and everybody, instantly like, okay, well, what's house system are you using? Oh, have you read, Ptolemy on the affinities of signs? And, it becomes these really advanced, and people said this at the conference, like, I found my people like me. Oh, wow, it feels so good to be here. So there are others. We have online spaces like this. We have Instagram communities where we can kind of have strength in numbers as we present. So
yeah.
okay, let me come to the other question now. Unless you want to say something here, or should I just come to this other question?
No,
What do you
no.
think?
I have so many questions, which is means future conversations. I want to know what your life was like before astrology.
Yeah, I mean, and I've spoken about this some on other shows and stuff, but no, I was not a philosopher. I went to University of Texas, studied mathematics. But I was very spiritual. I've been in like spiritual schools and studying spirituality as
Mhm.
a general topic since I was very young. I came out of addiction and alcoholism as just a
Mhm.
family kind of disease, and that was
Yeah.
a part of my early life of like getting sent to rehab a lot and just having an alcoholic, drug addicted, story. And so my recovery from that forced me into like spiritual understandings of life. And that's really, I connect those seeking experiences and like the fruits of that spiritual expansion directly to how I became an astrologer. I mean, there are actual links of people that I met until I finally met Dr. Jen Zart, who I say she initiated me.
Mm,
And that's a whole story. But so that's where kind of my maybe philosophic bent, maybe part of it at least, comes from. Is that
yeah.
I was studying Buddhism. I spent like 60 days in silence in my early 20s. Doing these Vipassana retreats. That was a huge part of my makeup and my psyche, and kind of and big influence on my worldview. Um, and yeah, that there you go. I studied tarot a long time before I even began to formally study astrology, about 5 years. So that informs a lot of how I work. But yeah, I met her, and then I didn't even realize, actually, before I met her, I had no idea that there was this profession called a professional astrologer. I had no idea. And we were all hanging out. I met her through a group of mutual friends. We went to a music festival in Boise, Idaho. And just so happened some of the friends I knew, and then a guy that knew those friends, she knew that guy. And so during that weekend, um, we didn't even talk that much. We probably talked for 10 minutes. And it wasn't even like me and her one-on-one. It was just, she was sharing a little bit of what she did. She shared about the Jupiter cycle. She said Jupiter makes its
Mm,
way through the zodiac in 12 years. And that had unlocked something, because I had just gone through an experience of a 12-year repetition, and I was very
yeah.
much aware of a 12-year cycle in my own personal life. And when she said that, I mean, I marked that as the day I became an astrologer, because even though I didn't have the knowledge that I would soon acquire, that triggered I was bitten by the bug that moment, and I've
Mhm.
never come back from that. It's like some these movies where something gets into your blood, and like all
Yeah.
of a sudden you just are completely changed. And that happened to me literally that moment, that weekend, one or two conversations. And she was taking breaks. Like, we were all hanging out in a group. We rented a big Airbnb. It was like 20 people or more. And she's the
Yeah.
president of ISAR now. It's really cool. But
Yeah.
um, and and then she was like, "Excuse me," and she like went off to teach a webinar, and then came back. So it was this very academic side of astrology that I learned from
Mhm.
her exists. Like, this wasn't, and she's a PhD at Berkeley. So I was kind of, that was a big influence, realizing that it's, astrology is this technical, academic, and there was this whole world that I had missed somehow. That was the other thing. I was like, how did I miss all this? Because I was studying tarot and it's all astrological
Yeah.
symbols. So I was like, okay, I know what Scorpio is. It's the death card. I know what that means. And then I talked to her for like 10 minutes twice over the course of the weekend. And I realized, okay, I
Yeah.
have this huge gap in knowledge. And once I started learning what exactly that gap in knowledge contained, then that's how, you become an astrologer, because I had to read so many books and study for so many years to finally feel like, okay, I filled that gap. Now I understand the astrological symbolism
Mhm.
of more fully, okay, than I did when I thought I had it figured out as a 5 year into tarot. So anyway, that's some kind of an answer, but I know there's a lot there. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot in our stories. I mean, we're all complex people. We all have a lot of different seasons of life, and so I'm fortunate. I will say this: I think some of our younger colleagues, I mean, bless
Yeah.
them, and I'm with, like, yeah, come in as like a prodigy, like 18, and just hit the ground running. I think there are some people who that's their path, and I'll be curious to talk to some of those folks as they get a little older, like how when life happens, people die,
Mhm.
going through crises emotionally, mentally, spiritually, economically, whatever the crises are that befalls humans. How does that inform their practice? And how do they integrate that? On the ride of astrology, rather than someone
Mhm.
like me. And I've seen others that go through like a lot of life, then astrology is provided, and then they become an astrologer, bringing a bunch of stuff into it. So, that's more my story. And I still tell people a lot. I
Mm.
mean, I was like in my mid 30s. That's young to become an astrologer. That's young, actually.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of right on time, post Saturn return. And then you get it. And I had a couple of years in post Saturn return, and boom, this happened to me. I mean, it wasn't even like I wanted to become an astrologer. I had no idea I would ever become an astrologer. Even saying that today is a little weird, but it just kind of happened. And so anyhow, does that speak to it a little bit? Some of my background.
Yes, and I still have so many questions, and, I'm still not entirely convinced that you're not a spy. This is
Well,
all just a
uh,
cover up for something.
I'm not, but I mean, I guess if I was, would I say I wasn't? I don't know. I think it's, they say, if the cop is a cop selling drugs, like they can't say they're not a cop. So that's why they always ask him, "Are you a cop?" Because if they say no, that means they're not. So I can say I'm not a spy. I mean, to my knowledge, I mean, we live in a
Oh.
world where, like, there are spies that don't know they're spies, or there's, like, MK Ultra or something, where there's, I don't, to my knowledge, I'm not, and I haven't ever wanted to be, and I don't want to be. I consider myself an independent, more artist, archetype. Is that what I embrace? But
I'm totally teasing, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that if a cop can't say they're not a cop, so that's why you ask.
Yes, that's what. Now that's could be wrong, but that's what I was always told, and I've seen that confirmed like a few times through the years. So I'm not. I don't do drugs or alcohol. I'm totally sober. I have been for a long time.
Uh,
But those of you out there that are in that situation, those younger astrologers we were talking about earlier that are still got a lot of life to live. If you're doing drugs, ask them if they're a cop. If you ever have a question.
Final advice. I love it.
Don't do
Um,
drugs. I mean, my honest advice is just get off the drug train as soon as possible. But
yeah, I don't, um I can stand by that as someone who's pretty sober, aside from, occasional very highly structured psychedelics that have, just I don't take lightly. But yeah, don't do drugs. I can agree with that statement. And also, Christopher says, "Just want to say I really appreciate both of you, and I'm happy y'all are part of the community." That's that's really sweet. I'm really
thank you.
stoked that I get to talk to you, SJ Anderson. And I just like saying your whole name. Does everyone else do that too? They're like, SJ Anderson.
They do. They tend to.
They
Yeah,
do. They
they
tend to, yeah.
can. Yeah.
This was such a fun, really casual live. I hope I can convince you to like do a podcast recording with me. It's a little more organized where we can have our technology down.
We'll happily do it. Yeah, just let me know. Sooner is better than later. If you, I don't know what your
Wait, what's
calendaring is
later?
like,
What's
but
happening? Are you going into silence again?
no, I actually I'm thinking about just doing less collaborations for a while, because it's just
Yeah.
I've got so much other work that I'm trying to
Yeah.
get done, that I'm just having to kind of maybe go into a time where I'm less able to like appear. Like this month is just, I mean, so much stuff has gone on that it's like I look at my own goals and my own work, and it's just, I mean, it's kind of a direct trade-off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of pretty. I mean, it's not like a hard deadline or something, but I think definitely by 2025, I probably will not. I'll probably be on the sidelines in terms of just collaborating on other platforms, just so I can get, like I said,
Yeah.
caught up and kind of produce the things I need to produce. But so if November would be good. I don't know. Anyhow, we can talk after if
No,
you
I
want.
love
But
this. I will certainly pin you down. I remember how you disappeared off Instagram before. It doesn't have to be an Instagram collaboration, but I'm just saying I will definitely pin you down. This is wonderful. And with that, I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
thank you, and I'm happy to be with you. Thanks for having me on, and wish you all the best today. And peace out to everybody.
Cool. Bye. I'm just going to end the stream.